Welcome to Amplifying Her Voice, everybody. This is how to start your own podcast. Are you ready to start your own podcast? I'm here with these amazing women. They're from all over the world. We've got India in the house. We've got the United States in the house, UK, and that's it for now. And who knows who else is watching. So yes, we're gonna give you the nuts and bolts of, whether or not this is right for you and what are sort of the benefits. Great. Awesome, Marie, you're launching. That's great. So these are the right people to talk to, and maybe talk a little bit about the communities that you belong with already and just, how you got started. I think that's probably the best story. So we're going to kick this off. I'm going to let Lee talk a little bit about what she's doing, and then we'll go around and then we'll talk about, whether this is right for you and the time is right for you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for letting me go first. So I think it's fitting, though, because here, I'll tell you, I got started without a plan, without much of anything, but being really angry. So I had everything set up. A friend was going to come over. We were going to have this show. And then she canceled in the most rude way or the rudest way. And I thought, well, I have the equipment already. Let me just start. And honestly, I have this YouTube channel that I don't really pay much attention to, but I had a tip on how to stay warm when attending an outdoor football game. So I thought, you know what? Let me just make that an episode, and see where it goes. I didn't have a title. I had nothing. And so my message to everyone is, if you have the desire to podcast, you can get started. My only thing I would really love to suggest is start out with good audio quality. I was a former reporter, so I had good equipment collecting dust in a drawer. So just buy a dedicated dynamic cardioid microphone, you'll be set. But the thing is, I've changed my show name several times, and now I produce 6 different shows and work with others and have done all this stuff. And so the thing about podcasting is that it gives you a gateway, a doorway to opportunities and a life you never would have imagined. You cannot imagine. And just, I like to say that having a podcast, it's like having a fax machine or tattoos. One, everyone has one, like a fax machine, right? Back in the day. But podcasts are like tattoos. Once you get one, you want more, right? And you figure out, right, how different subjects that you're passionate about. And so just get started, because here's the thing. The number one regret we all have is that we didn't start right when we had the first idea. And so you want to start the clock on your life. Why wait? Don't wait. And it's really easy. And if you want to do it, but you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out for help to any of these ladies you see before you. We're all ready to help. And so thank you so much, Anu, for letting me share my story. And if you happen to be Asian American or identify that way, please come join us at the association. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go to Danielle, and then Kego, and then Charlotte and Peroma. Okay, Danielle?
Hello. Hi. Happy to be here. The original question, sorry. I was so caught up in Lee's introduction and wonderful assessment.
How and why did you get started?
Okay, so I started actually already in a place of storytelling as a graphic designer and art director of 15 plus years. So in running a business, I'm very attached to hearing people's stories, how they got started, what made them begin with. And I found an extension of that through podcasting. So not only necessarily connecting it to my personal brand, but being able to kind of share an extension of myself outside of just my business brand. And creating kind of a safe place for women in tech and women creatives. And that's where my platform comes from in podcasting. So when I encourage other people who are interested in podcasting, I primarily am asking them one question, which is, what are you dying to tell people that you can't tell them any other way? That is usually my always, because I can tell someone mid-traffic through a window, hey, it's a red light, don't go. But I would love to find other ways for other people to be able to share those stop sign moments, whether it's through personal storytelling or just through their own life experiences, whatever that may be. So I always ask that question, what are you dying to tell people that you're not able to tell them any other way? And of course, equipment, things along those lines are super nifty to have, but really it's the heart of it is, what are you trying to tell people? What do you want to say? And I feel like that is something I continually echo to people who are asking those questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Charlotte, you?
Thanks. So my background is working in radio. I worked for the BBC amongst other places, and I left the BBC and I found myself without a voice. And that was really, really strange that I wasn't talking on the radio all the time. What happened? And cut a long story short, there was a political party who tried to get a seat in Parliament in the city where I live, political party that is quite frankly racist, to be fair. And the whole of the national media came to Stoke-on-Trent, which is an industrial place, really only ever known for pottery, bit down on its luck, if I'm being honest. The national media came here and went, oh, Stoke-on-Trent, oh, it's really poor. They all voted for Brexit. They're all racist. Oh, I'm going back to London where everyone's rich and it's all lovely. And I was like, no, I'm having none of this. But I wasn't able to say that. There was nowhere for me to say that anymore because I wasn't on the radio. So I just went, I'm starting a podcast because I need to get the positive voices, the positivity that is in this city. And there are so much positive. So I decided to kind of rip off this American life, basically, and tell the stories of Stoke-on-Trent through culture. So it was people who were doing cultural activities because, again, it was the whole everyone around here is poor and no one does anything exciting. No one does anything that's worth doing. All the pottery factories are closed down. So it's just not worth it. And oh my goodness, I don't want to say more famous because it makes me think, I'm more well known for doing this podcast than I was ever when I was presenting the breakfast show on the local BBC radio station. More people know me through the podcast, and I've had so many more opportunities, been invited to more things, been asked to help shape the city's cultural future. That would never have happened without the podcast. And now it's my actual business, making podcasts for other businesses as well. So it has opened up so many doors for me. And I just started out recording on my phone. That's what I did. I just stuck my mobile phone in someone's face, did that. Because I did try and spend 3-4 months planning it to like a BBC Radio 4 documentary type thing. Chucked all that out the window, went out with my phone, recorded it, put a sock on the end of it because it was a genuine actual sock that you wear on your feet. Put a sock on the end of it because it was a bit windy and we were outside. Make, do and mend. And do you know what? I love it. I like it. Just changed my life. Yeah. You just do what you do, don't you?
Just do it. You did it. What do you mean? Just do it. You did it.
Just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Akego, your story, man. How'd you do? Woman, I should say, not man.
Thanks, guys. Well, for me, it was more, I had a problem and I was looking for how to solve it. So I work for a nonprofit in DC, and we promote trade and investment between the US and Africa. So we organize all these events and conferences all across the continent and in the US. And every time we set up a panel, I'm like, where are the women? Like, where are the women? Like, this is so unbalanced, So every time we're doing that, they're like, oh my God, Akego is going to complain about this panel again. So in researching for another event, I came across some World Bank data that said that more women in Africa choose to be entrepreneurs than anywhere else in the world. So there are more female entrepreneurs in Africa than anywhere else in the world. And I was like, where are these women? And why don't we know them? Like, how do I find them? So for many years, I was wondering what I would do, what medium would be best for me. And I thought I was going to maybe do a conference or go and interview them. But it just kept taking, I just couldn't get round to what to do. And in all this time, I've always listened to podcasts. I grew up in Nigeria, and radio is a big thing, is the biggest marketing tool on the continent. People can't afford, not everyone can afford to have a TV, but everyone has a radio. So it was an easy transition to go from listening to BBC World. We used to listen to BBC World every day. So it was easy to transition from radio to listening to podcasts. And so I thought, maybe I should look into podcasting. And then COVID hit. and that was the blessing of COVID. I mean, there are many bad things that came out of COVID, but there were many blessings. So the idea that I could interview people anywhere on the continent without having to be with them physically was so appealing. So that's how I chose podcasting as the medium. And like Lee, I really didn't have a plan. My weakness is that I procrastinate. So I was planning. I was trying to come up with a great plan. And then my friend put a gun to my head. She said, okay, well, if you don't launch this in February, I will put out something on Facebook and Instagram to say that you're launching a podcast. And she's one of those type of people. I knew she would do it. So I was scared out of my wits, and I was like, okay, I'm starting this. So I started without a plan. I didn't even have, I think I'd managed to get a microphone, but I really had no plan. My first interview was so bad. I had to redo the whole thing again. But I would say that it's been very empowering. It's been an empowering experience. I mean, I've been podcasting now for a year, and I've interviewed over 30 different women across Africa. And that was my goal, to make sure that the story wasn't just one country or one part, but I wanted to get a breadth of women, in different sectors, but all building and all doing amazing things. I've made some great friendships in the process as well. And you don't even know the strength of your network until you start doing things like this, for people that have interview podcasts, because trying to book people, that's when you realize how great a network you have, or how great a network you can have, So for me, it's been empowering. It's helped me in my work, my day job. Hopefully at some point we can talk about balancing and scheduling and those kinds of things. I would love to talk about that a little bit more. But that's how, even though I came to it without a plan, of course, eventually now I do have a plan and I do have structure. And I'm currently there's a podcasting fellowship for people who are thinking about podcasting and maybe looking for ways they can improve their skills or build a network. I'm on the On Deck fellowship, podcasting fellowship, and it's been amazing. It's an 8-week program. And
Where is this again?
The website is Be On Deck. Be on Deck. The On Deck pod. It's amazing. Absolutely. They bring all kinds of quality people. The quality of the people who come to speak, the things that we're learning, the network we're building. We did a radio race over the weekend where we had to create a podcast in 24 hours, 5-minute podcast.
Whoa.
24 hours, I know. So
amazing.
Yeah, so many skills. So yeah, it's been great. It's been a great experience. Yeah. And
you're in what season now of your podcast?
I'm in season two. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Season two.
And in the chat, just type it in so we can all check it out.
Sure. African business stories. Sure.
Okay, so let's go to Peroma and then Becky. 1 second. Peroma, can you?
Hey. Hi.
Hey. Hi, love.
Okay, so I'm based in India. So my friends and my friends aren't based in India. So I have these two co-hosts. One of them is based in the UK, the other one in the US. And the three of us met while we were writing in our off time on Korean dramas, because we all love that. And we were writing for a site, an English language site, where we were reviewing TV shows and all of that. That was great. The site was run by two Asian American women, which we loved because that, gives a kind of like a cultural perspective on things. That was great. But I loved listening to podcasts, and I wasn't getting any Asian perspective on Korean dramas. And this was like 4 years back. And the two women running the site that we were writing for at the time, they would occasionally release audio discussions, but it wasn't exactly a podcast. And so one of my co-writers and we just decided to record one of our ramblings and put it on the net. And because we had been writing for a while and we had created a bit of a community around us of, other international viewers who also liked East Asian dramas, we almost immediately started getting feedback on that. And we were using everything that was free. We, just like Charlotte, we were also using our phones to do the recordings. The quality wasn't great. We made a really bad mistake of using a bit of copyrighted music in that first episode. So we actually had to scrap it and then, re-record and upload much later. It was just bad. We did everything you shouldn't be doing. But the great thing was then we had a third friend hop in. So that's how our podcast started. We haven't had to reach out to any stranger to have on our podcast, because as our podcast grew, our network grew within the community, and other people who are also creating in the fandom who have established blogs or other podcasts, they just became kind of well known to us because we were having conversations. The podcast kind of like made our network expand in a way we never imagined that it would happen. And we kind of just started inviting friends over. I mean, people that we never thought we could be friends with. We were friends with them. And then we were having them over as guests. And then we had the community kind of like buoying us up. Like we never thought we would be able to monetize the podcast. We thought these were conversations between friends. But that happened too. And around like in the first 6 months of the podcast launching, again, super informal. We made all the mistakes that I would advise my clients not to make now. I started editing for somebody who reached out to me because I talked so much about my learning curve of editing podcasts. So somebody was like, hey, why don't you edit my podcast? So that's how I kind of started. And it was a lot of fun. And I used to be a freelance blogger before that. And I was like, no, I don't enjoy that. Whereas this new thing that I'm doing is giving me life. I can create stuff. I can help people create stuff. So yeah, it's been 3 years since I started my company. And it's kind of, yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is great. This is a lot of fun.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, Becky, we're going to transition to you now. You started your own podcast?
So actually, I work in the podcast industry and used to work as a producer. So I have sort of a unique perspective in that I've never been an indie podcaster. But so I sort of got into podcasting by accident, and it really started with this senior thesis I did, which was this short audio project. I'm sorry, New York City streets. If you can hear this car honking, I apologize. Yeah, I did this. Anyway. I'm so sorry. So I did this 5-minute piece about women in male-dominated industries and spaces, and I fell in love with the medium. And then I got a producing job, and I got to produce podcasts for a book publisher, and kind of working with authors and helping people find their ideas and make their ideas a reality. And then currently I work at a hosting company called Acast, and all day, every day, I help podcasters start their shows and grow their shows and think strategically about their shows. So what I'll say is that the people who are being paid to do this likely don't know any more than you do. They're all confused. They all need help. So to Lee's point, like, start your podcast and you'll learn along the way. 95% of podcasts that are big now, that have these big audiences now, they had no idea what they were doing at the beginning either. And I think what the beautiful thing about podcasting is as a medium is that it's a space to be unfiltered, to be unedited, to not have someone telling you what you can and can't say. It's an open ecosystem. And I think if there's anything I've learned with working with so many podcasters, it's that sometimes the weirdest idea is the idea that the world needs, and that replicating someone else's idea isn't going to get you notoriety. It's finding what makes you unique and your podcast idea unique. And that really is, anytime I talk to podcasters who are thinking of starting podcasts, that is the main takeaway, is what is unique about what you want to say. And a lot of times it's the fact that you're saying it. So don't be afraid to start your podcast. And that's me.
Awesome. So there was a stat that came out April 2020. 100,000 new podcasts were started. 70% of those were by women. And what does that say? That says that, a lot of women had shifts in their workspace, and like Akego, it wasn't, I'm going to do it. It's, you're doing it, like Charlotte, right? So ultimately it's find a closet, find a space, get your content, call a friend. There's a lot of like social groups. Many of us met through social groups. And ultimately just, your voice matters at the end of the day. And unless you get it out there that people aren't going to know, and you may become famous like Charlotte and rock it out of, no, come on. You're having impact ultimately. And so are you, Akego, like you're having impact. And so are you, Danielle, and Peroma and Becky, like all of you are. And that's just one step forward. And this is a new digital skill because you're all becoming digital warriors. And, it's the age now, it's the shift. It's like before women, we were quiet and, we were just, our voices were contained. And now it's like all these goddesses are being unleashed, from all over the world. From my standpoint, I started women investing in women and girls probably 6 years ago as a show on Voice America Radio. And I was like you, Charlotte, we were on a radio network. And the producer really liked our content. I went to go share Women Investing Women Summit. And I think she was like 12 years old. This girl interviewed me on her show. And the producer said, we love his content. We think it has scope. Can you please come back? You need a teen host. And so I called my babysitter. She was 14 at the time. And she's like, I don't know, Anu. And I said, no, I'm telling you, this is going to get you into whatever college you want. You need to do this. I'll worry about the content. You need to ask the questions because your voice is important. We're going to start now. And the nanny said, you know what? I want to do this too. Can I be the producer? I'm like, come on, you can do this. And she was half Nigerian, half Austrian and, just trying to skill herself. And I'm like, let's do it. And then my 2.5-year-old would say, Mama, I'm coming with you. I want to be part of this team too. And she'd say, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. So we had a stroller, we had the nanny, we had the producer, we had the co-host, and we did 100 shows with Voice America Kids. And this is to the moms out there. And what had happened is we called UN Women, UNICEF, we called Intel Women and Girls, Princess Rima with her daughter. She was 15 years old at the time, I think. And literally it was like all the questions that you want to ask as a young girl. And I say this to many of the girls that are homeschooling out there. It's never too early for you to start and skill yourselves. If there's so many of you that are doing TikTok and so forth, like, you have skills. And that's what I want to tell the people out here in this audience is we live in a whole new world. You have everything you need if you have that phone. Now, what we did is we ended up putting some of our content on Acast, Becky. So I'm familiar with Acast, interestingly enough. And I do speak Swedish. I got my MBA in Sweden. And so it's like, I know, random, right? So I was there when they first opened. And part of my thoughts, like during the pandemic was, we have all these great stories, all these great women, all these inspirational people that have like stories that they want to put onto podcast platform. Yes, just do it. There's people like you've had like examples of people that have done it, and Peroma, yes, is having the time of her life, and she got into the space. We've created 2 apps, one on Android, one on iOS, all women-led podcasts, and we're creating a 3rd app on a platform called Kaios, and it's going to work on $10 mobile phones across Africa, Asia, Latin America. And women who are living on like $2 a day ultimately are going to have their voice too. So I'm going to call on you people to come and inspire them. And your voices matter, their voices matter, and they're going to ask these same questions. Am I ready? Do I have what I need? And like you said, you need that phone, but more importantly, it's just the motivation to say, yes, I can do this. I have something to share. And their voices are just as important as ours. And so it's really equaling that playing field. And I'm going to ask the audience to basically ask us any questions here in the chat thread that they may have for the panelists, and you guys can jump in and answer. But really, it's just the that push of like, yes, we're going to do this and why. And when we talk about inspiring young women and girls, like ultimately, it's your stories and it's your experience. So I'm just going to give you guys another few minutes just to say anything that you are looking for in terms of 2021 collaborations, partnerships. Really quick, we have 5 minutes, so please tell us anything you're asking, any wisdom for the next generation listening. Let's start with Peroma, and we're going to give you a minute each. Go.
my bit of wisdom would be to make sure that you're not starting podcasting with okay, how do I put this without sounding condescending? We can start podcasting on any subject whatsoever. That's fine. That's great. But if you are really passionate about something, don't just start it without having some kind of a strategy or a plan in place, because your voice absolutely matters. But for your voice to reach people, well, your content has to reach people, and that's not going to happen if you just record on a whim and then let it sit in your hard drive for 6 months and then upload it one day and then don't work on your next episode for another 6 months. So get into something that you can absolutely do on a regular basis. If it's a limited series, you just want to work on 12 episodes and that's your first season, that's great. Have that plan before you launch. That would be my advice.
Awesome. Charlotte, you?
Things that I get asked a lot about, because I work with a lot of clients who do podcasting, and they say, I hate the sound of my voice. And it breaks my heart, because it's mainly women who turn around and go, I hate the sound of my voice. I sound like a young girl. I sound really squeaky. And my biggest tip to that is not get over it, because that's really harsh. But sometimes you just have to suck it up, listen to your voice. But there's really good things that you can do to be able to listen to your voice. I use my voice memo app all the time to make my to-do list. So I'm always listening to my voice, and hearing my voice and recording my voice becomes absolutely normal. It's not a thing that I suddenly get a bit scared about. Everyone gets voice text messages from me. No one gets a written text from me anymore. I just send them voice messages. So hearing my voice and recording my voice becomes really, really normal. And it's part of the whole, normalizing me hearing my voice. Now, I have listened to my voice for 20 years working in radio beforehand. And you know what? I don't think anyone actually loves the sound of well, some people do. Most people don't love the sound of their own voice. You just get used to it. And the other thing I would say is, please, 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 please don't get hung up on chart positions and listener numbers. If you know your why, you will know exactly what you're doing it for. And you just need to make an impact on one person. That is all that matters. Don't get hung up on those chart numbers, those downloads. You are changing someone's life by talking, and that is what's important. There we go. That's my little pedestal.
Such great wisdom right there. Thank you so much for that. And it's that fear. And once you get over that, I think that's what's holding people back, is like, I'm not going to get listeners. I'm not going to get this. And really, like, I think when Lee was writing the notes in the chat, she said, once you make the podcast, continually share it and have that support system so that people keep within your circle, like push you forward. And you need that. So find that support system also. Okay, go. Love.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I know I have 1 minute, but I just wanted to follow up what Charlotte said, because on this, my fellowship, we're talking about communication today. And that's one thing, is I'm one of those people who doesn't like the sound of my voice. But in terms of training our voice, we had, what's his name? Matt, I forget his name. Andrew, I forget his name now, but he teaches communication at Stanford University. And so he was saying, just speaking out loud consistently. It's one thing about, he was teaching us breathing exercises, and also just constantly speak. He, like you, comes from a radio background, so he speaks normally. But for people who don't do that regularly, so his advice was to just speak to yourself out loud on a regular basis, to just train your voice. So just adding that to what you were saying, Charlotte. But for me, the first thing I wrote here is know your why. And I think Peroma and Charlotte have also said that, know the reason why you're doing this, because podcasting can be a lonely journey, and it's your why that keeps you going. The problem you're trying to solve, or the message you're trying to get out there, and just to know that the barriers to entry are really low, and they're getting lower and lower because of the pandemic. There's so many apps out there, and the apps are getting so much better for recording. And previously, people used to record on Zoom or Skype, but the quality is so bad. So there are apps like Squadcast and Riverside.fm, which are great for remote recording. YouTube is your best friend. I edit all my podcasts I started off paying, but in the time when I was paying, I was teaching myself how to do it. So apart from the first 4 episodes of my podcast, everything else I edit myself. You don't have to if you can afford, but just know that YouTube is your best friend. And there's also Descript is another great app. If people, someone said in the chat that they were launching soon. Descript is a great app for editing. There's so many great things out there that can help you. Mics aren't as expensive. You don't have to buy the $400 mics. You know, there are some really good quality, cheap mics. So just to know that you can get started. You can get started. The resources out there, and there are lots of resources out there. And yes, like Peroma said, please have a plan. Some of us started without a plan, but now for my second season, for example, I've pre-recorded all my interviews. So you need to have a plan, and community is important. Find a network of some sort, find a network and plug in somewhere. There's so many people. Someone talked about a Facebook group earlier. I don't know about that group, but I'd like to get information about that group. I'm in a female podcasting group myself. We meet every 2 weeks. It's amazing. So yeah, find a network. And I'm happy to connect with anybody and answer any questions offline if needed.
Yes, awesome. So that's all really good advice. Ariel Nissenblatt from Squadcast is moderating the next panel. So I'm sorry to have rushed everyone, but you're fine. And all of these are pearls of wisdom, especially like as people go in, and it's an investment. Like here's what I'll say is, some of you are out there thinking, I'm going to have to spend all this money on equipment. I'm going to have to spend all this money on editing and so on and so forth. What I will say is there's a mic out there called Blue Yeti. It's a cheapy mic. If you want to feel like you're buying equipment, I went and bought like a $90 mic, and I've been recording with other hosts. Like we've been doing podcasts with other hosts. The ones that Danielle has, I bet that's like a more sophisticated one. And it's like you have these boom mics, and it can get as fancy and as expensive as you want. Or it could be like Charlotte, like using your phone. And some of us start off that way, and there's no harm in doing that. So whatever your budget is, start to build your community, start to build your audience, just see how committed you are, and then you can dive into it. We created 5 original podcasts since December, and we're now going into like Chinese, Arabic, and Bengali. Like we're thinking of like new languages and how we're going to do this, and playing around with these women from other parts of the world. But there are editors out there that are more than happy to help you, guide you, and they will all work something out. People that can help you with artwork. There's a whole community out there. Yeah, exactly. So I would say out of all the communities that I belong to in the podcasting world, there's a lot of female podcasters that are just like popping up, and they're all so collaborative. That's the beauty of this, is like you put a message out and someone knows someone knows someone knows someone, and it happens. And my big, hairy, audacious goal is to get more Islamic women from the Islamic world podcasting, because they have a lot to say, and it's a question of skills and things like that. So find yourself a mentor if you don't have it. The State of Women Podcast Network has partnered with the Podcast Academy. That's another one for you, Okego, Podcast Academy. And so it's a group, and every month they have these seminars that we're doing with the State of Women. So if you join our network, you're part of them also. And they have mentors. They have people that come in and speak once a month. They do education and networking and so on and so forth. So find your tribe, find your community, whatever that may be. She Podcast is the Facebook group that I highly endorse and recommend. Elsie's speaking in a couple hours. She's leading a session on inclusion. So just like that, like these are communities for you for women. So Danielle, could you give your last piece of advice, and then I'll give it to Becky?
Sure. Last piece of advice would be something that was handed down to me that I hand down to women all the time, which is do it afraid. Whatever we do it afraid. And that is because a lot of times from our fear comes a lot of the courage that is required to get to the next level, to the next step. Our history as women comes from a fiery background of doing things out of fear and being successful from that fear. So that is my encouragement to anyone who is listening in earshot range, whatever country you're coming from or watching from, do it afraid, knowing that there has been a long lineage of women before you and behind you that have done courageous things out of fear.
Amazing. That's such great advice. Love it. Becky?
So I'm just going to give really concrete advice and really concrete resources. So NPR training and Transom are two amazing resources for how do I record? What mic should I use? How should I structure this story in audio? They're amazing. They're frankly like the reason I know how to make podcasts is because of those two resources. Also, there's so many audio people and audio communities on email listservs, Facebook groups, Twitter. Message your favorite producers. I promise you that your favorite producers want to hear from you and they want to help you, especially if they're women. I've learned so much from podcasting communities, and people are so open to helping. And I wouldn't know how to make shows if it wasn't for the people who taught me the things that I know and were gracious with their time. And there are so many of them. So again, it's NPR. There's a website, Transom, Transom. Those are the two amazing resources. And yeah, just don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. I promise you people are there.
One second, the second one was called Transom, you said?
Yeah, transom.org.
Transom.org. Okay. I recommend the recent live talk of Conson Lockett, London School of Economics. Drama School offers speaking classes. I recommend take them. Helps with voice tone and breathing. Transom. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yes, that's the correct spelling. So everyone, those are great resources. And I mean, I have nothing but gratitude for this panel. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I think some people are going to start their podcasts. It's time, you know, the divine feminine is here now, and we need you all to step up, and you're all CEO.com, right? Ultimately, and get your voice out there and, you know, find your community, find your tribe. We're having a meeting tonight, the State of Women Podcast Network. If you can make it, make it. If not, like, you'll all be hearing back from us for the next Amplifying Her Voice, which will be in 2 months from now. So we hope you'll join us then, all of our panelists and all of our listeners and whoever may be hearing this after we record and share this. So thank you, everyone. There's another podcasting session happening right now that Ariel Nissenblatt from Squadcast is hosting, and it's about podcasting for social impact. So for those of you that are committed to the space and where your message is going, join us there. Thank you. Bye.